Well, glad to see all of you. This is a culmination of about a 5-year project to get you here for today. It's a multi-part thing. Today we called it a May 1st event in 3 parts. We've started out with a community group with a run race. The museum is open for tours, and behind me is the site for the Colonial Garden and the dedication of this marker. A few little thank yous to start with. None of this would have happened without the help of Mayor Hicks and the City Council. John's out in the crowd, and he'll take complaints about anything, anytime. Appreciate that. We had a fine council I was lucky enough to serve on for a number of years, and without the foresight, things wouldn't be happening in Gillespie now. $11 million water project is winding up with the sewer project to follow. There is a downtown streetscape project that, with the attention that the council and the museum made, we've got funding coming in from the government for the museum building and for a downtown streetscape. If you go into the museum at the entrance, there's a slideshow of our projected hopes that should be starting within a year. This all started with the mayor asking me to take a meeting with a Route 66 guy, and found not much going on for 66 history, but there's a coal mining history. Things just started rolling from that, and we've got Geoff Ladd from the Route 66 Scenic Byways inside. He's going to film and document, so smile whenever you see him. On the promotional end, Corey Job from the Great Rivers and Routes, the Alton-based Convention and Visitor Bureau that also is covering Macoupin County, is bringing a lot of attention. We'll get some activity from that group as we develop the lake better. We've got eagles just like Alton does that we're going to share with them. And also on the list, we have Cheryl Jett in the crowd, that's an author of Route 66 material, numerous books, and also a playwright. And what we're trying to get her to do is to buy that Cana Theater behind you so she can have her own stage for the Aprons Away Ladies of Route 66 production that's been out on tour. And the big thank you, a couple of them coming up, the ladies from Mount Olive at the Mother Jones Museum and the Union Cemetery played a huge part in today's event and with the history. They're going to bring some of the story together. We're going to finish up with Helene Silverman, a U of I professor that is responsible for the project, the Mythic Mississippi project. Is covering this area, and what we've done is kidnap her with the coal story. Her project that's online and very good. We've got links for you to look at in the museum, but it covers an awful lot of things, but we've kind of convinced her that coal is the most important part. And again, with the 3-part thing, our Macoupin County, the story for us starts at 1898 at the Verdun Massacre. Somewhere around here, I saw Mother Jones and General Bradley. Their spirits are here today to commemorate what started it all out. Then Mount Olive was involved in the Verdun strike. And what you'll see if you visit that museum, my favorite is a couple of telegrams that were going back and forth during and before the massacre. General Bradley, we have 100 men on rail cars in Mount Olive. They're armed and ready. He sent a nice little thing back. 2 hours later, another telegram, don't send men, send doctors. The massacre was over. But that started a movement that ended up here years later with the progressive miners and the importance of the union struggle with saving the coal industry from itself. So I lost Mother Jones. She'll show up and she will be heard. At this time, we're going to go through, so I don't come up and bother you between each speaker. Dane Solari, the pastor at Trinity Baptist Church, will say a few words and get us going. And between each speaker, the Wildflower Conspiracy will be entertaining between each speaker. After the to start there after Dan Fisher he's a city council, city treasurer, been on the council, been a mayor, and is involved with the Gillespie group that's also promoting what we're doing here in town. And we might get some rowdy ladies coming from Mount Olive, and finally Helene Silverman from the U of I and the Mythic Mississippi project.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Dane Saleri. I'm pastor at Trinity Baptist Church, just a few blocks south of here, and I'm so glad to be here. They told me to prepare something, an invocation of some kind. I told them I usually preach for about 40 minutes, so is that good? So I'm going to keep it to 5 minutes, is kind of what their faces told me. So anyways, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad that you are here, and what I want to introduce you to is the garden, the Community Garden Project. And I feel like, honestly, I am the last person that should be up here talking about the community garden, because there are many here, and they're standing among us even right now, that have put hours of labor into this garden here. They have put blood, sweat, tears, time, and energy beyond what I have done for the garden. And so, man, you just see that there's been a drastic change just in the past year of what this garden was. And there's an amazing vision that's behind this garden. And so there's many things that are going on in this community, and this is one of the big things that's happening. This garden is called the Colonial Giving Garden, is what we've named it, based on its history. And what the plan is that we want to the produce from this garden is to help people in need in this community. It's to serve this community. And so I love the passion that the team for this garden is come forth and built some boxes and dug up some ground, and the donations that have been made. There's a lot of traction here and a lot of hands that are getting dirty to serve our community. And so let me ask you this question. How do you think this happened? How do you think this is possible? Let me tell you how. It's people who love their community. That's why this is happening. It's people who love their community and they want to see it grow. It's people who love their community and they want to make it better. And it's people who love their community and they want to serve those who are in it. We have a small but very powerful team that is behind this community garden project that has made everything possible. There's so many names, I can't name them all right now. But this is not a club, okay? This right here is an open invitation for all of you as well. This is an open invitation for you and I and us together to make this town better, to see it grow, to see families take root here and grow here, to see new businesses come and gain profit here and cause this community to thrive even more and more. So all I want to say, I'm going to close with this. I want to say thank you all for being here today. Thank you for those who have got their hands dirty and spent their hours after work and used their donations and money to make this all possible. And I hope you, if you're listening here, that if you're here in this community, that you would join us in the future of this community and that you would love this community too. Let me just offer a quick prayer, and then we'll keep going, all right? Father God, I do thank you for this community. I thank you for this garden. Wow. God, I thank you that the historical relevance of this plot of land, the union that was galvanized here, may it be in the future that this would be a marker, a symbol for our community to come together, to be unified, to love and serve people as we go. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
It didn't take me long to break my promise about not coming up here again, but our first musician just showed up and had got Nick Crumwady with an original song that he wrote concerning the Verdun Massacre of 1898.
Hi, my name's Nick Cromwitty. I wrote this song for last year's May Day celebration in Mount Olive. It's about the Verdun labor riots. If you don't know much about it, I encourage you to read all about it. It's not far from here. It was a tragedy what happened there to those boys. I also encourage you to come out tomorrow to the Mother Jones Monument. It's going to be a great time tomorrow morning at the Mother Jones Monument. Thank you.
My name is Dan Fisher, and the reason Dave asked me to say a few words today is that my family on my father's side were present at the founding of the Progressive Mine Workers Union in this building that was behind me in 1932, and later on moved forward in the labor movement for the balance of their lives. So Dave wanted me to say a few things about the formation of the Progressives, but the truth of the matter is there are people who are better than me to be able to explain those things. What my talent is, and I think it fits well with the occasion, is I can make you mad. I can make you aggravated. I can make you understand that we need to challenge the world as we see it, and we need to be able to move forward and move in a different direction at times. And that's what my remarks today are going to be about. Can you hear me in the back? I guess you can. I don't know. I'm as close as I can get without spitting in it. Okay, thanks for the update. How about this? I'm just going to hold the mic in my hand. Can you hear me better now? Okay. So, the Progressive Mine Workers, I want you to think about it. Look behind me at this garden that you've heard about, and visualize a building that is smaller than the plot of land that we've got. And it's in early September, September 1st, in Illinois, the end of the summer. It's hot. And you got about 300 miners packed into a building that was in poor physical condition. You know, parts of the ceiling were falling down before they got in there. Many of them had been up all night long. They'd come in off shifts, or they had been to the tavern, or been working at a second or third job, and they come here because they're mad about the direction their union had taken and had given back hard-earned, hard-fought contract dollars in order to get a nationwide settlement. Now, UMWA District 12, which was Illinois, was perhaps the strongest branch of the union in the entire nation. District 12 had won concessions beyond what other unions had won, and had established for themselves a history of being able to put their money where their mouth was, to put their feet on the ground, and to be aggressive in the pursuit of the goals that they had in front of them. And their goals were pretty simple. They wanted a better life for themselves and for their families. So think about it. That's not that big of a space. You pack a lot of upset, possibly partly intoxicated, unhappy men in a room at the end of an Illinois summer in the heat, and you get fired. And that's what came out of that room. And I think in order to understand history, we have to always put it in context with what we know today. So this may seem a little controversial to you, but it wouldn't be right to talk about the labor movement unless you had some controversy involved in it. I think the group that, if you think about it really, and I thought about this since Dave asked me, who do I think is maybe a good touchstone about what was going on with the progressives at their formation, is Black Lives Matter. Only instead of black lives, it's coal miners matter. Think about it. You had largely an immigrant population, first generation, second at best, that came across an ocean because they had to. They had to find a life somewhere, try to earn a living for their families. Gave up everything they knew, everything that was dear to them, to come here to try to find a better life. They had sacrificed and done everything imaginable to try to do that, had worked hard. And then the groups that they thought had been their benefactors, the people that had worked for them, their union brothers, they thought sold them down the river in a contract. Gave back all the hard-earned gains that they had made, they thought were washed away for the sake of not making trouble. They were also led in many ways by women, which was not the normal thing back in those days, okay? We've heard about Mother Jones, but the Women's Auxiliary played a dramatic role in the direction that union took, and the way it acted and the way it interacted with the community. That's not much different than what you see in Black Lives Matter today. And the third similarity, I think, is they thought that most of the givebacks that they had, that the reason that they were not respected, the reason that no one listened to them, the reason they thought they'd been sold down the river, is that they were part of a permanent underclass. And that this country had turned its back on them. Even though they had dug coal, that had lit the lights, powered the trains, done the things that made the Industrial Revolution possible in this country, they thought that the rest of the country took them for granted and left them behind because of who they were, that their life didn't matter. The old adage about if there was a problem in a mine, you saved the mules first because they were more valuable than the miners was real. And that's how these men thought. That's not much different than a lot of people think today. And another part about it is, when they interacted with authorities, particularly the police, particularly sheriff's deputies, it didn't turn out too well for them. You know, there was violence perpetrated against these miners where they were killed, murdered, and they responded in kind back with bombings and with knives and other things. It says it on that plaque. But most of the violence was precipitated against them first. And indeed, the formation of the Progressives came after the march down in Mulkeytown, where they were led into an ambush. So they came back here and said, that's it. That's the last straw. We're going on our own. And they did. And their vision was to have a more democratic, more socially responsible union. Now, they were labeled as communists. In particular, Republican candidates, even back then, zeroed in on them and said they were all leftists. They were progressives. That's where the name came from. And there was their share of socialists and communists. But the thing that they were more than anything else was anti-fascist. Because they saw in John L. Lewis and the autocracy of United Mine Workers at that time a strong hand that told them what they had to do, and they rebelled against that. They wanted to have the right to make their own decisions, to live their own lives, to feed and take care of their families. And so they came together and they formed a union on that spot. And they did pretty well for a while. But ultimately the forces that they rebelled against, you know, made it less likely that they could succeed in the long run. But we had a 5K race this morning. And as a person who has run a marathon or two in their life, I learned a long time ago, it doesn't matter how fast you go, really. What matters is that you tried and you did your best to finish. And that's what the progressive miners did. They stood up for what they believed in. They wouldn't bow down to the establishment, to the forces against them, which were powerful. And they did it to try to make conditions better for all working men and women in this country. So even though we may not have a Progressive Miners of America today, we should be thankful for what they had done, and we should pay homage to it. Now, before I leave, I want to call your attention to, there's an exhibit in the museum, and I hope you get the time to go there, because Dave and the other ones in the museum have really done an exceptional job of making it a truly interesting and important historical site. But there's an exhibit in there about the sit-down strike in Wilsonville. And if you haven't looked at that exhibit, do that today, because there's tours going on there. That's another way that the progressives implemented a technique that's common in our lifetime for civil disobedience and protest. Sit-down strike. And for 200 days, the progressives occupied the mine in Wilsonville against the company, and in a very real way against partly their own union, because the national leadership of the progressives believed that they should settle, that it should be done. But the miners themselves wanted to not give in quite so easily. So another day begat another day, begat another day, begat another day. And the president of the union that walked them out of that mine that day was my great uncle, John Fisher. And here's what John said, as quoted by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch when he comes out. He said, "Our immediate strike is nearly a reversal of a greater struggle that looms in the coal industry on the issue of mechanization and the consequent efforts on the lives of the people who depend upon mining for a livelihood. Unless greater social and economic reforms are enacted to give miners a greater share of the benefits of mechanization and of their labor and the fruits of it, they will manifest themselves with greater intensity and a broader scale, and I pray for our country." Those words could be said by anybody today, but they were said by my great uncle in 1932. And so I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Sorry about the mic, but that's what I know about the Progressives. And this garden here is another example of the spirit that they began when they formed in early September in 32. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done. So that's all I have, and thank you very much, and we're going to have some more music right now.
What a beautiful day. We're going to sing Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, said he. I never died, said he. In Salt Lake, Joe, by God, says I, am standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, said Joe,
Hello, I'm Joanne Condalone. I'm on the board of the Mother Jones Museum, Mount Olive, and a member of the Union Miners Cemetery Perpetual Care Committee. It's my privilege to talk to you today about the women of the Progressive Miners of America's Auxiliary, who they were, what they did, their legacy, and our responsibilities to them. I'm going to tell you a little bit of that story, and then Anna Pamfetti-Ecker is going to follow me and tell you her personal family story, because her grandmother was in this auxiliary, White City. So who were they? They were the daughters, wives, mothers of coal miners who shared the hard work, the poor pay, the dangerous working conditions that led to the death and injuries of miners. We shared the poor medical care, terrible housing and poverty that life in the mines brought with it. They knew what it was like to search for food for hungry families during strikes. They sat with the men in the union halls and joined the talks of strategies and solutions. They were the midwives and nurses, boarding house maids, gardeners and farmers in their communities. Few of them earned wages. Many were new or first or second generation Americans. Many of them were bilingual, sometimes trilingual, literate in their home language and in English. A few, like their most famous leader, Agnes Bernswick, who became the leader of the Progressives at this very site in 1932. Agnes had a college education, the first coal miner's daughter in Southern Illinois to go to Southern Illinois Normal School to get a teacher's education, and then had a scholarship to study labor history in Chicago. Most, like Agnes's right-hand organizer, Katie DeRury, who was an immigrant from northern Italy and knew hunger as a child. Most of them, like Katie, had some high school education and learned the values and the ideas of democracy in the Union Hall and in their communities. When the striking miners of central Illinois rode to Mokietown to protest their stolen union vote, the women, the daughters, the mothers, the grandmothers, the sisters rode along with them in those cars. They too were driven off the road, injured, terrified, shot at, denied medical care, and radicalized by the experience. They marched with their men, 15,000 strong, to commemorate the Battle of Verdun and the dead buried in Mount Olive on October 12, 1932, before the auxiliary was even formed. They marched in partnership with common purpose to remember the dead, to fight for a just union, and to celebrate Mother Jones. They loved her and acted in the spirit of her work.
I've heard enough! I've heard enough! I've got something to say here, and I want you to listen up. If those boys down buried in the coal mines could rise up today, rise up and march with us, they'd have plenty to say. And they wouldn't be afraid. Oh, they wouldn't be afraid. But I'm here to tell you, be brave. I don't want you to be afraid. We're peaceful protesters. Peaceful protesters. But even peaceful protesters get arrested. Don't be afraid. I'll be right there with you. We're going to march. We're going to march for better wages. Justice. Can't be afraid. And you're going to have cool heads, because when they take you off to jail, you're going to want to get upset and lash out, but you can't, because laborers are the ones that built the jails. They don't mind cooling their heels there. Doesn't matter what race, creed, or political banner you stand under. We're all laborers, and we're in this together. We have to keep fighting. You know, there's only two classes of people. two classes. Those that create the wealth and those that steal it. We're not putting up with any of our boss's dirty shenanigans. Let me tell you something, boys. Those fellas that built the washing machines, they had it right. Down in the very heart of the washing machine, what did they do? They put an agitator. That's what we need, a strong agitator to stir things up and whip those dirty bosses and clean up this mess. Oh, you're a brave bunch to be here today. They tell you you're not a lady if you march. Well, it's your bosses that's telling you you're not a lady. We don't want ladies. We want women, strong women to march with us. They're the ones that know how to clean up messes, am I right? Women can clean up messes, and they walk in. You should have been with me there in West Virginia when I had that bunch of mountain women and we marched into the coal mines with our mops and our brooms. The men were afraid to go, and we went down into the coal mines and we chased those scabs out of there. We whipped every one of them. Listen to Mother. Listen. You get down on your knees at night before your pallet and you say, "Oh, dear Lord, please send us better days. I have so many bills. Oh, please help me." I tell you to pray for the dead, but fight like hell for the living. Yeah. I may not reach heaven, but at least I raise a little hell.
May the spirit of Mother Jones always be with us. As the miners developed their union, the women developed their auxiliary, their own democratic organization, leadership, and constitution. On November 2nd, 1932, a two-day meeting of 157 delegates from 38 auxiliaries, a total of 5,000 members, met to form the Women's Auxiliary right here. Here is some of what their constitution says in the preamble. These are the women, remember when you hear these words, who were considered ignorant, illiterate immigrants. Because of the misery inflicted upon our families as a result of the intolerable conditions in the coal industry, we, the women of the coal fields of Illinois, have organized ourselves as a militant ally of our men's union in the struggle for existence. As the Women's Auxiliary of the Progressive Miners, we shall do everything possible to strengthen our men's union, to help preserve their hard-won liberties of the past, and to help them secure a fuller measure of justice as workers. For our men, we want nothing less than the full social value of their labor. For our children, the fullest opportunities for education and happiness. For ourselves, the right to join with our men in the labor movement toward the end that labor shall build a better world for all the children of mankind. Agnes Bernswick became the first president and led the women on marches, 10,000 strong, to Springfield to petition the government for unemployment insurance and fair distribution of aid. Katie DeRory, who came to be called the Good Samaritan of the coal fields, set up soup kitchens that welcomed everyone, children of black and white miners, progressives and united alike, to eat together. White miners' wives, Katie held education sessions in her parlor. For the first time, black and white miners' wives and daughters socialized together, strategized together. The auxiliary wrote articles, fed and nursed and offered aid to their communities, lobbied governments, spoke to churches and community groups, all to make their common cause, to defend a new union and its democratic ideas. We know the progressives failed in their attempt to counter the United Mine Workers of America and to get government support for their cause. By 1999, they ceased to exist. So what is the legacy of the progressive miners and the Women's Auxiliary? Why are they important? They are important as a vital piece of labor history and all history in America, of struggles for representation in the union hall, for safer working conditions, for justice for working people. That piece of history, which continues to affect all of our lives, all of labor history, happened here on this place, in this small town, in the prairie, and in the communities around us, right here in our place. They were good stewards of the United Mine Workers. Because of them, we have the Mother Jones Monument today, and they tended lovingly to the Union Miners Cemetery. What are our responsibilities to the PMA and the Women's Auxiliary? It is our turn to be good ancestors, to protect the values and ideas they cherished with our own actions, to honor them with events such as this one. We must tell their stories, illuminate their lives in our schools and museums, remember their courage. At the dedication of the Katie DeRory Stone in Collinsville, Jerry Ellard, a great pillar of the progressives, said these words: "A union as a nation honors its warriors, but it is those who heal who are its conscience." Thank you, and remember, solidarity forever.
I am extremely proud to be here today to help celebrate and honor the brave women who were members of the Women's Auxiliary of the Progressive Miners. Having raised our family in Mount Olive, we always knew the significance of Mother Jones and what she fought for. We have always taken great pride in the fact that she requested her final resting place be in the Union Miners Cemetery in Mount Olive with her boys. Gillespie, Mount Olive, and so many of our surrounding towns share this strong coal mining and union history. I recently had the opportunity to learn more about the Women's Auxiliary of the Progressive Miners. I discovered that my grandmother, Mary Mahelsick of White City, had been a member of the Women's Auxiliary. I found two pictures of the auxiliary dated 1946, one with my grandmother and all of the members paying tribute to Idris Maybe at his gravesite, and one with all the women at a meeting hall. Beautiful pictures that offer a glimpse into the powerful history of these courageous women. Many of us in this area had mothers and grandmothers who were a part of the Women's Auxiliary. Sharing their stories is one way to honor them and keep the spirit of what they stood for alive. They were the real backbone of the movement. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid. Thank you, strong women, for having the courage to become the militant ally of our men.
Well, after that rousing speech to get everybody riled up, here's a song. We hope you'll join along with us here. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? For the union makes us strong. Everybody, solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. They have taken untold billions that they never told to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, find our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. In our hands has placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of armies magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Hey, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Let us hear you now. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. All right, good job, everybody.
Okay. Typical paranoid person. Sorry. So, I'm Helene Silverman. I'm a professor of anthropology at the University of Illinois, and you're probably wondering what I'm doing in the middle of landlocked downstate Illinois, representing the Mythic, Mississippi project. And it's because my colleague Devin Hunter and I were captivated by the unparalleled role of the Mississippi River in American and local history. And we were interested in promoting heritage tourism in river towns that had lost their industrial base. But when we started laying out the project, we realized that the issue of culturally rich communities was not restricted to the riverside. So we expanded our geographical parameters, and that's how I come to be in Gillespie today. Early in the project, we became aware of and then enraptured by the extraordinary history of coal mining and labor unionism in southern Illinois. And I'm thrilled to be here for the inauguration of the historical marker honoring the creation of the Progressive Miners of America in 1932. This marker talks about dramatic events that happened in southern Illinois around labor rights, thanks to the courage of coal miners and the women who supported them. One of the themes of our project is the coal triangle. Coal miners were at the heart of the American labor movement, and southern Illinois was the epicenter. Our idea is to attract tourists who are already in Springfield because of Lincoln, and to motivate them to visit the coal towns to the south. You can drive a short distance to Verdun and see where the match was struck, igniting labor unionism with the Battle of Verdun, which is commemorated in a beautiful pictorial memorial in the middle of Verdun's town square. And from Verdun, you can drive a short distance to Carlinville, which has a beautiful architectural district of the Sears homes that were built to house the miners. And from there to Gillespie, with its outstanding coal museum, thanks in large part to Dave Tucker and Jim Alderson. And from here to Mount Olive, where Mother Jones is buried, where the Progressive Miners of America erected a great monument in her honor and commemorating their own Union martyrs. And it's located in the Union Miners Cemetery, which is the only such Union-owned cemetery in America. And Mount Olive also has the excellent little Mother Jones Museum, which is being refurbished as I speak. And Benelt, if there is anyone here from that little town between Gillespie and Mount Olive, don't be left out. We encourage you to follow the brilliant lead of Ken Snyder, the owner of the Mine Number 5 bar, and to take advantage of your raucous mining and Prohibition-era history. You've got a fascinating town, and you should be able to be part of the Coal Triangle Heritage Tourism Route. Tourism generates jobs and money. We see a real future in the Coal Triangle because of its history, its location near Springfield, and of course Route 66, which runs through it. We want to help Coal Triangle towns to promote more points of interest for curious travelers, and of course we're tremendously enthused by the work of Great Rivers and Routes under its new director, Corey Jobe. There's interesting vernacular architecture in many of these towns. You've got the Cana Theater over there, which I urge you to protect and to restore. There are many towns that are quite pretty. There are unique restaurants like Tilly's in Mount Olive and the winery at Shale Lake. The Coal Triangle is easily an entire day trip. Devin and I are keen to engage with all of you. Thanks to the vaccine and face masks, we'll come visit you. We want to know what you think of your towns and your heritage. We want to work with teachers to promote knowledge about the events and the movers and shakers of Southern Illinois. Our project has a website, mythicmississippi.illinois.edu, and we welcome your contributions to it. We're on Instagram and Facebook. We want to collaborate with you. We want to help you to recognize and market your cultural heritage. Again, I congratulate Gillespie for its exceptional entrepreneurship. Grow Gillespie is a reality, as we see by the Coal Museum, this beautiful community garden, and the extraordinary enlightened City Council of Gillespie and its mayor. Devin and I are so grateful to have been welcomed to your town, especially by Dave, and we look forward to many more events and successes. Thank you.
Well, it took a world-class archaeologist to find Macoupin County. Now that we know we're here, remember what your heritage is and come back to visit us. Take an opportunity, if you have time yet today, to take a tour through the museum. At 1:30, Harold Rousey has a book that would highlight every bit of the history you heard today and more. So take a little bit of time, grab a bite to eat. And on our way out, Kelly Hatley's going to play a song for us. While we were here, over at the Mount Olive Cemetery near the Mother Jones Monument, a lady that was laid to rest, by her request, just like Mother Jones, she wanted to be buried near Mother Jones. And the interesting part, I understand, it's an east-west alignment of headstones. Ann Feeney's marker is facing the Mother Jones Monument. Even in death, she has clout. So what we'd like to do, Ann Feeney was an activist, songwriter, performer, and what she wouldn't want would be a moment of silence. So what we're going to do is play her song, Have You Gone to Jail for Justice, with Kelly Hatley. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
This is one of Ann Feeney's more popular songs, Have You Been to Jail for Justice? Was it Caesar Chavez, or maybe it was Dorothy Day? Some say Dr. King or Gandhi set them on their way. Well, no matter who your mentors are, it's pretty plain to see. If you've been to jail for justice, you're in good company. Have you been to jail for justice? Want to shake your hand? 'Cause sitting in and lying down are ways to make a stand. of freedom or marched a picket line? Have you been to jail for justice? Well, then you're a friend of mine. You law-abiding citizens, listen to this song. Laws are made by people, and people can be wrong. Once unions were against the law, but slavery was fine. Women were denied the vote, and children worked the mine. And the more you study history, the less you can deny it. Rotten law stays on the books till folks like us defy it. Well, have you been to jail for justice? I want to shake your hand. Just sitting in and lying down are ways to take a stand. Have you sung a song of freedom or marched a picket line? Have you been to jail for justice? Well, then you're a friend of mine. Well, the law's supposed to serve us, and so are the police. When the system fails, it's up to us to speak our piece, and it takes eternal vigilance for justice to prevail. Get courage from your convictions, let them haul you off to jail. Have you been to jail for justice? I want to shake your hand. 'Cause sitting in and lying down are ways to take a stand. And have you sung a song of freedom or marched that picket line? Have you been to jail for justice? Well, then you're a friend of mine. Have you been to jail for justice? Will you go to jail for justice? Have you been to jail for justice? Well, then you're a friend of mine. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.